Hi, I'm Kai, and it's been a while. I had a lot of things happen in real life, so I had to take a bit of a break from modding. But I'm getting back into it, and I thought I'd start by releasing some previously unfinished work. And I figured the best mod to start with would be Useful Utilities, which, if you remember, is a sort of dumping ground of mod ideas that were a bit too small to release as individual mods, which feels pretty fitting as the first mod back. Now the mod has grown a bit since you last saw it. I've been going through some old files and finishing off things that felt pretty near completion, but I might as well begin with the general kind of features I showed off last time. So first of all, the herbivore feeders. They've been moved into the dinosaur feeder menu. Just like last time, we have the small feeders, the medium feeders, and the large feeders. And of course we have the regular variety, the dried grass variety, and the template empty variety you can use to fill up with stuff from expanded scenery, which is getting an update too, so you should be able to use that pretty soon. But I have since added tall feeders as well. These are for, well, tall dinosaurs, like sauropods. Again, same stuff. You got the regular green herbs, dry herbs variety, and the template empty variety, and that is just a aviary perch, I believe. Yeah, it's one of these. I just thought it fit. So, to show them working, we just go into the sandbox settings and re-enable hunger. And speed up time a little bit. Also, actually, make this a bit quicker. Make them all hungry. There we go. That should do it. And let's just make the small dinosaurs hungry as well, because they just ate. There we go. Next, we have the benches and binoculars, which can be found in the decorations menu under the park tab at the very bottom. A few more things here, but I'll show them off later. So, just like before, you have, I guess, forward-facing benches, the benches that face towards the path, as the icon shows. Benches that face away from the path. And binoculars, which have a much greater viewing range and radius than the benches. You can, of course, view the benches, you can sort of sit on them. Same for the binoculars. Oops. So squeeze between them, sometimes a little bit too close clearly. And benches now provide accommodation, and optionally, in the config menu, I'll get into this later, they can also provide rest. And just for context, benches provide 10 accommodation, whereas the small hotels provide about 400. So we need 40 benches to one hotel. Now obviously you can't get 10 people sleeping on a bench, but it's sort of an abstraction. It's to let you decorate the park and have some use out of these benches. But speaking of accommodation and rest, we now also have, if you scroll on to the bottom, a rest area inspired by JPOG. It's not the same thing, but it's sort of inspired by it. If we stick it in the forest, and then say, paint it so it looks quite nice. Let's use these. And connect it up to the regular path. That's what it looks like. So, you have the entrance. You have a whole bunch of different sort of tables with umbrellas. You've got your regular benches. You have these little picnic tables with benches. And it has a whole bunch of viewing spots. Oh yes, and I can't get into it. There you go. There's an interior. You can sort of look up and it looks quite nice. This provides, I believe, 200 accommodation and a restroom coverage. Again, we'll get into this a bit later. And as I mentioned, there's a whole bunch of cameras, so you can sit on this bench back here, either of these two here, I believe that seat there, and this seat here, either of these two seats, either of these two seats, and then either of those two seats and those two seats. Just show you that real quick. So that's the back seat. Then those two seats opposite it. That's where we're sitting. This is the center of the sort of big open room. You have these two side benches here facing away from the entrance and towards the entrance. Same on the other side. And then these two little, I guess, shacks on the edge. Get this seat and a seat opposite it. And then we'll move over there, this seat, and a seat opposite it. And last time we were sitting over there, that's the central sort of big area, and that's the bench we started at. Now I was initially going to decorate this with a whole bunch of trees, but I figured with expanded scenery coming out again, there's no need to do that because you can probably make it more customized than I could. It would be a bit of a waste to put stuff in here when the whole point is sort of, it's a resting area, so it's up for decoration. That doesn't look very good. And in case this much customizability isn't enough, you also get an empty variant, which has nothing in it. Well, it has the buildings, but doesn't have any of the benches or the tables. You can customize it as you please. But just to avoid cluttering up your menu by having too many buildings, this is disabled by default. So in the mod, there's a config file with this set to false. This is saying whether or not this empty resting area, so this thing here, is enabled. If you set it to true, it'll appear in your menu. And in case this is still not enough customizability, if you remember, we have these buildings individually down here in the park tab of the decorations menu. So you can place them down wherever you want. This is an open variant of this sort of entrance. Then you have the large thatch room, that one there. Small thatch rooms, it's these here. And this little, I called that a gazebo. It's not a gazebo, but I couldn't think of a better name, so this thing here. Then you can add benches, you can sort of add paths. Let's enable custom width, drop it down a little bit. You can sort of connect it up how you please. And again, these are meant to be looked at from the inside, so they do have their inside sort of fleshed out. If you can get around them, there we go. They do sort of have a ceiling and all that. Next we have the biggest request of the mod, which everyone wanted to see finished, and that is the vending machines. These are in decorations under facilities down here. So we have the drinks machine, which provides drink, the snacks machine, which provides food, and the souvenir machine, which provides shopping. These are a little bit broken right now. As you can see, there's way too many guests available. I need to fix that before I release it. But that's a pretty quick fix. I should be able to do that pretty soon. And with that, we can move on to the wholly new features of the mod. And first is something I haven't shown off in a very long time. When I build it, you should be able to tell why, because the design I had for it has changed quite a bit. And that is the boat tour. Now to begin with, just like before, you have the water side, that's on the left here, and the entrance, that's on the right here. The water side used to go in the water, the entrance used to go on land. Of course, with free build you can't build it wherever you want, but it will spawn land under the entrance as all buildings do. So let's place it here-ish. And as you can see, it's based on the small hotel, as is the resting area. This is kind of what it looks like. It's on stilts, in the water. And yes, it's based on the small hotel like I was saying. It's a bit different, but it's the same general idea. Use this as a basis. Again, same as the rest area. It's meant to be a mod that sort of releases small unfinished concepts in a way that's playable and useful rather than a massive overhaul. But the thing that's changed is with the boats themselves, and again we'll get into that once we actually built the track and they can start spawning. So let's connect it up using a regular path. And let's build the track. And I just realized I completely forgot to change this text to say boat tour, so I'll do that after the video. So here you have the boat tour. You have the gate, that's the expanded paths and fences gate, so we will need that mod in order to run this one. It uses a few assets from that mod. Let's place one here and one here for the return trip. And we have a few different types of track. We have the regular boat track, which needs to go in water. Again, with free build you can build it out, but there is also a pass-through track you can just build on land. So let's build it up there. And then I'll show you the log track, which is probably my favourite. Again, it's based on expanded paths and fences. It uses this track here, sorry, this path here as a basis, but with elevated logs. And if you have free build installed, you can triple click on any sort of path or wall and it will automatically select the menu for it. Build some light paths here. These are with lights that spawn underwater. And on the way back, let's build a pass-through track here just to show you what it looks like. Again, it won't look very good because these are boats. They're meant to go in water, not on land. But just to show what it looks like. And there's the boat, and there is the difference. Now, if you remember, the original idea for these were wooden boats. They're meant to be sort of like rowboats with a motor attached. Well, that didn't really work out. I kept getting frustrated at it. Essentially, the boat had to sit quite low in water because you can't sort of have really thick planks on a wooden boat. It just feels weird. But when it did that, the guests' legs were flooded with water up to their knees. And I kept working on that, kept being kind of frustrated by that. I was sort of close to giving up, and then someone else released a different boat tour, and I figured, well, there's no need to have two, and this one already has an issue because, again, they had a sort of flat boat, I have a rowboat, and the rowboat has issues, so I decided, yeah, I'll just work on something else. But just the other day, a couple of days ago, when I was looking to the mods I need to finish, I was also watching a YouTube storyteller on my other screen, and they had some kind of scene in there with an inflatable boat. And I figured that is perfect. That's the sort of realistic, not too silly looking boat that I really wanted in my park. So I added that in, and that's what it is. That's what this is. Of course, the turbine spins. You can't really tell here, but you'll be able to see it once they come out on land. So it doesn't really matter in the end, does it? There's a couple of seats. You can click on them and ride the tours. There's a front left seat, a front right seat, and a back center seat, I think, yeah. You can switch vehicles, because there's one thing I don't half-ass, it's the coding side of my mods. And that's kind of what they look like. I do like this log path. Of course, the invisible path, or the regular boat track, does make it look like they're just traveling up the river, which is really nice, but I am a big fan of the log path. I think it looks, or well, log track. I think it looks really nice for the boats. Just a cool vibe. And this is expanded path and fences stuff, so the gates do work for the boats. And if you wanted to see one on land, there you go. Again, doesn't really fit very well because, well, it's a boat. It's not a land vehicle. But yes, that's the boat tour. It's pretty close to the original that I showed off, just, again, had to change the wooden boats to these boats, and now finally it's in a state where it can release and look pretty decent. And that finally brings us to the last thing I've added to this mod, which is the arrival tour I showed off a couple of months ago, or well, half a year ago now. Ugh. There it is. This is pretty much unchanged from before. So you have the main entrance, let's place that here. You have a little side entrance in case you want that. And just to show that it works, let's delete this entrance, hook this up, which again there's no tour to it yet, so it won't do anything just yet. Let's go back into the editor, finish off this track, and again, same gate because it is sort of a Jurassic Park themed thing. Attach to here. And if you were to just hook this up like so, hold on, like so, that's a really tight angle. There we go, like so, that won't actually do anything. Well, I think the Jeeps might spawn. No, the Jeeps don't spawn. But yes, it doesn't do anything. You need to attach it to a helipad. So, let's build one. Actually, yeah, I'll build one here. I don't like building here because this is a pretty tight path for the Jeeps to go through, but there should be enough room. And the way you build it is, it's facing sort of towards the helicopter and your cursor's towards the path. So, the path is on our side now, and then the path would be towards waterfall there. So let's place it like so. That's not too much room, is it? Let's attach it back in there. And there is, of course, an invisible path, so you can sort of go through thick foliage. Back to regular path. I keep calling them paths, I mean tracks. Oh, of course, need to delete this. And of course, if you have FreeBuild installed, you can triple click on any fence or any track to start editing it. And with that, everything is connected. Well, that's not because there's nothing connected to here. But this side is connected. Now the Jeeps do spawn out in the open, which is a little bit weird. But I think it's more in keeping with the original theme, where they sort of stop in front of a arrival. That's not arrival center, what is it? It's the visitor center, there we go. Which is also what this sort of side stop is for, so you can stop in front of the visitor center. And of course the helicopter does work. There's one flying in now, I think. Speed up time. There we go. That'll come in, drop some guests off, and then fly back out again. So all of this should work exactly as you'd expect. There's a main entrance, that's here with the welcome sign. There's a side entrance, or a little stop, I think I called it. Yeah, it's an arrival stop, which lets guests get out into a small area without a full big fanfare entrance. It functions the same, it just looks a bit different. And there's the helipad. Now there are a couple of things you need to know about the mod. First of all, we build a regular path, so not a facility path, a regular path. And build in 3 thicknesses just to show you what I mean. The snapping elements, so that's the vending machines and the benches. Where are they? I think they're in here, yep. They snap at the same distance, so on the wide paths and on facility paths they'll be fine. But as you get to the other paths, which have been sort of narrowed, but in code they have the same width, they'll snap a bit too far away. It's the same effect as building vanilla snapping buildings. And there are 2 ways to fix that. First, if you have FreeBuild installed, you can press Ctrl and 1, and that'll disable snapping, so you can build them wherever you want at that point. And again, Ctrl and 1 to re-enable snapping. Alternatively, in the mod files, there is a config file, which lets you disable snapping completely. For decorations. It's only for decorations from this mod, so if you have this set to false, and save it, next time you open the game, the vending machines, benches, and binoculars, wherever I place them, there we go, will no longer snap to paths. And the second thing to note is the whole restroom thing. So, by default, benches and rest areas provide both capacity and rest. Now the game has no rest need, it's called restroom. If you click on restroom, see it's got restroom need, restroom coverage, same for this. This provides it too, as do the benches, but I've disabled the UI for now. I'll re-enable that before I upload the mod, but they provide that. And that's because there'll be a second file that you can download from the mod page, which will change the name of the restroom need into the rest need. So that way you have accommodation and rest, not accommodation and restroom. And that's just for some JPOG theming. But if you don't like that, the config file lets you disable any of these. So you can disable the rest area, that still's up there, providing either capacity or restroom. And you can also toggle that for benches. So you can say benches will no longer provide restroom or capacity if you don't want to. And again, for context, benches provide 10 capacity, these rest areas provide 200, whereas the smallest hotels provide 400. So they're not quite as strong, but they do also provide rest if you enable that. And that's about it. So it's the feeders, benches, binoculars, vending machines, rest areas, boats, and arrival tours. Now I might eventually split off the arrival tours and boats into a separate thing because I am working on a treetop tour, kind of, not a ride, but like a structure. You can sort of build trees with walkable areas and viewing posts and stuff. But that's nowhere near finished, so for now I've bundled these two rides with this pack because they're a bit too small to release on their own. Unless of course you think these should be released either individually or as a tour pack separate to useful utilities. Do let me know because I'll be finishing this sometime this week, probably next couple of days. So if everyone thinks they should be released separately, then I'll just do that instead. But whichever way we go about it, I hope you enjoy.